On an ordinary night in Florida, a sequence of footsteps captured by surveillance cameras would become one of the most disturbing images ever recorded. Two teenagers walked side by side, seemingly in no hurry, heading toward a dead-end street. What looked like just another night of youthful fun was about to turn into one of the most brutal crimes of the decade. What could drive a 14-year-old boy to take the life of a schoolmate in such a cruel way? The answer lies in a dark obsession with violence that had already consumed him for months. And how does a family, upon opening their door, face the truth that the killer was not a stranger, but their own son? Because many times the signs were there, only ignored or minimized. On the morning of May 8th, 2021, the small community of St. Johns County woke in shock at the news of the disappearance of a 13-year-old girl named Tristyn Bailey. Desperate after failing to reach her, the family contacted police, who quickly began searching the area. The last trace of Tristyn came from her own sister, who reported seeing her on a video call with a persistent classmate, 14-year-old Aiden Fucci. Hours earlier, Tristyn had met with Aiden and other friends at a nearby house. Around 1:30 a.m., surveillance cameras recorded the two of them walking together, laughing, raising no suspicion. However, those images would be the last time the young girl was seen alive. Instead of taking her home, Aiden led her to a secluded area, where he stabbed her 114 times in an act of indescribable violence. The attack was so sudden and unexpected that Tristyn had no chance to cry for help. As the darkness of the woods swallowed her final moments, Aiden ran back home barefoot, carrying his shoes in his hands, in a futile attempt to cover up the horror he had just committed. When the sun rose in St. Johns County, Tristyn's absence already felt abnormal to her family. It was Mother's Day, May 9th, 2021, and no one had been able to reach the teenager since the night before. Messages went unanswered, calls were ignored, and the family's unease turned into panic. The inevitable decision was to call police, who treated the case urgently and issued an immediate missing person alert. As officers organized searches around the neighborhood, surveillance cameras from a gated community proved crucial. The footage clearly showed Tristyn walking with Aiden during the early hours, heading toward a more remote area. That clue not only narrowed the investigation, but also brought into focus the figure of a teenager whose fixation on violence was about to reveal its darkest side. Just hours after Tristyn's disappearance, cameras captured Aiden again. But this time, something was different. He was seen running alone, barefoot, carrying his shoes. His behavior drew investigators' attention, especially since the time he claimed it took to return home didn't match the distance. Aiden told police it took him nearly 2 hours to walk back, when in reality the trip could have been made in just 30 minutes. During the initial interrogation, Aiden tried to create an alternative version of events. He claimed Tristyn had gone with a supposed 20-year-old drug dealer, but no witness confirmed this story. On the contrary, close friends and even his girlfriend revealed that he had repeatedly spoken about what it would be like to kill someone. The mask of an ordinary teenager was beginning to fall, exposing a pattern of morbid fantasies and plans that matched Tristyn's final steps that night. With so many contradictions in his testimony, the police decided to act quickly. A warrant was issued, and when officers entered Aiden's bedroom, they found evidence that confirmed their suspicions. The first discovery was an empty knife sheath, belonging to a blade he often carried and had nicknamed Poker. That detail alone was disturbing, but it was far from the only piece of evidence uncovered. Inside the room, a pair of wet Nike sneakers stained with blood lay next to a damp t-shirt and jeans. In a nearby bathroom, the sink contained traces of blood mixed with dirt, signs that someone had tried to clean up in a hurry. To complete the picture, Investigators found a notebook filled with satanic drawings and unsettling notes. Every detail reinforced the image of a teenager obsessed with the idea of killing, turning suspicion into certainty. Faced with the overwhelming evidence, police had no doubt. Aiden Fucci had to be taken into custody. The 14-year-old was arrested on charges of first-degree murder, shocking the entire community that still hoped for a less cruel explanation for Tristyn's disappearance. The most chilling detail came when, during the ride to the station, he took a selfie inside the patrol car. The act, disturbingly casual, only heightened suspicions about his inability to grasp the gravity of the crime he had committed. The case took an even more controversial turn when Aiden's mother, Crystal Smith, was also arrested. Footage showed the woman washing her son's blood-stained clothes in an attempt to hide evidence. Charged with obstruction of justice, she pleaded not guilty, but her involvement only added more weight to the proceedings against the family. What could have been seen as a desperate act of maternal protection became just another dark piece of the puzzle surrounding the crime. In September 2021, Aiden Fucci faced the courtroom for the first time. What struck everyone present was not only the formal charge of first-degree murder, but also the defendant's behavior. Sitting beside his lawyer, he seemed detached from the environment, murmuring under his breath as if speaking to someone invisible. That detail brought back to investigators' minds the demonic drawings found in his notebook, reinforcing the image of a young man trapped in his own obsessions. During the trial, family members and witnesses were given a chance to speak. One of the most powerful moments occurred when Aiden's grandmother took the stand. Through tears, she described the loving grandson she once knew, contrasting him with the dark figure she now saw before her. For the first time, the teenager showed a real emotion. He lowered his head and seemed affected. It was a brief moment, but enough to show how family pain pierced through the rigidity of the courtroom. After weeks of analysis, testimonies, and the presentation of evidence, the judge had no doubts. Aiden Fucci was sentenced to life in prison. The decision came with the rejection of any claim of demonic possession or mental disorder that could justify the act. For the court, the crime was the result of a conscious and cruel choice, with no sign of genuine remorse. When the sentence was announced, Aiden remained silent. His calm, almost apathetic reaction unsettled everyone who had been waiting for some indication of his understanding of the weight of his actions. Even in his apology to Tristyn's family, his words rang hollow, focused more on himself than on the pain he had caused. This lack of empathy reinforced the perception that the sentence not only punished a crime, but also exposed a personality marked by coldness. In April 2016, in the quiet town of Wadsworth, Ohio, police received an urgent call about a missing person. The family of Margaret Douglas, worried after failing to reach her, asked for immediate help. When officers entered the residence, they were met with a devastating scene. The house had been ransacked, as if it had been the target of a break-in, and inside a bedroom closet, they found a lifeless body of a 60-year-old woman. The examination of the body revealed clear signs of violence. Margaret's dress was unbuttoned, her underwear torn, and there were marks of assault on her face and neck. For investigators, there was no doubt it was a brutal homicide. But who could have committed such cruelty? The search for the killer seemed complex until the name of a neighborhood teenager, already known for minor offenses, emerged as the prime suspect, Gavin Ramsey. Taken to the police station, Gavin Ramsey was accompanied by his mother, who seemed unable to believe what was happening. During interrogation, the teenager tried to convince detectives of his innocence. With tears and theatrical gestures, he claimed to be remorseful for past mistakes, but denied any connection to Margaret's death. His speech, however, sounded rehearsed, as if it were just an attempt to manipulate the situation. The investigators, experienced in detecting contradictions, allowed Gavin to speak freely. When they noticed he was becoming confident, they began confronting him with details that did not match his version of events. The young man tried to shift the blame onto someone else, but this only deepened suspicions. The final blow came when Gavin's phone was confiscated. Inside, an encrypted app contained videos recorded on the day of the crime. The footage showed the attack on Margaret in full detail, leaving no doubt about his responsibility. With the videos in hand, detectives knew Gavin's story could no longer stand. Summoned once again to the interrogation room, the teenager tried to repeat his act of crying and despair, but the strategy lost strength in the face of the explicit footage from his phone. Confronted, he changed tactics. He began to admit parts of the truth, still attempting to minimize his responsibility. But every detail revealed only placed him deeper at the crime scene. Finally, Gavin described how he entered Margaret's house that night, watching her as she slept. When a victim woke up startled, he attacked and strangled her to death. He then violated her lifeless body in one of the most cruel and disturbing acts of the case. The confession, though riddled with contradictions and attempts at justification, was enough to seal his fate. In January 2019, Gavin Ramsey was convicted of aggravated murder, burglary, kidnapping, and abuse of a corpse, receiving a life sentence with a possibility of parole only after 25 years. In January 2020, the city of Jacksonville, Florida, became the stage for a war between rival rappers. Hakeem Robinson, known professionally as Ksoo, was in conflict with Charles McCormick, nicknamed Lil Buck. The provocations, which began in music and on social media, soon spilled out of the artistic realm and onto the streets. On the 15th, Charles was murdered in a brutal shooting, caught on surveillance cameras, which sped up the police investigation. Among those taken into custody was Abdul Robinson, his father and leader of the ATK gang. To the detective's surprise, Abdul decided to cooperate. During interrogation, he provided details of the crime, described the escape route, mentioned weapons that had been left behind, and even confirmed the identity of the shooter. In effect, he turned in his own son, offering evidence that became critical to the case. Ksoo was charged with first-degree murder, while the trial remains ongoing, with new hearings scheduled for 2025. On January 27, 2023, the hospital in Artesia, New Mexico, recorded one of the year's most shocking incidents. 19-year-old Alexee Treviso was admitted complaining of severe back pain. While being treated, she asked to use the bathroom and stayed there for more than 20 minutes. When nurses went in to check, they discovered a newborn lifeless in the trash bin. Alexee had secretly given birth and attempted to hide the baby. The investigation revealed that she had known about the pregnancy but denied it to everyone, including her mother, who only learned the truth when informed by police. The young woman was later convicted of first-degree murder, child abuse, and evidence tampering. Just a few months later, on January 5, 2023, Tulsa police were called to an apartment complex after a frantic phone call. April, a panicked mother, screamed for help. Her 12-year-old daughter, Kalea, had stabbed her 9-year-old brother, Xander, while he slept. The boy's final words were directed at his mother. "She hurt me." The girl was found still holding the weapon and was taken to a juvenile facility. The case revealed that she suffered from ADHD and was taking medication that might have influenced her behavior. Despite efforts to save him, Xander did not survive. Once again, a tragedy showed how violence can emerge within a family itself, leaving scars impossible to erase. Enjoyed this case? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more true crime stories like this. Drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. We love seeing how far our stories travel. Hit the like button to support our work and share this video with fellow true crime fans.